The call came in just after sunset. A frantic report of a disturbance in a quiet Perth neighborhood. When officers arrived, they found a nightmare. The door to the modest apartment was ajar, and inside, the floor was slick with blood. The young woman lay motionless, her throat in a final act of cruelty. The air was thick with the metallic scent of violence, the silence punctuated only by the shallow breaths of the man who stood over her. He was not in shock. He was not remorseful. He simply waited, as if he had done nothing wrong. The city's suburban streets were quiet, the air warm and still, but behind the doors of a modest unit, horror unfolded. Police officers responding to a disturbance at the apartment of 21-year-old Ruqia Haidari were met with a scene of unimaginable brutality. She lay motionless on the floor, her throat savagely slashed, blood pooling around her. The man responsible, her husband of barely 2 months, stood over her, a mixture of rage and emptiness in his eyes. The man was Muhammad Ali Halimi. He did not flee. He did not deny his actions. Instead, he told police that Ruqia had refused to be a good wife. She had defied him, rejected his advances, refused to cook and clean. In his eyes, her murder was not just an act of violence, it was punishment. A punishment for disobedience. What authorities would soon uncover, however, was that Ruqia's death was not just about a failed marriage. It was the deadly consequence of a forced union, one orchestrated by her own mother. Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more shocking true crime cases. Your support means a lot to us. The victim, Ruqia's struggle for freedom. Ruqia Haidari was more than just a victim. She was a vibrant young woman with hopes, dreams, and a deep love for life. She had a warm and infectious smile, one that could instantly put people at ease. Her friends described her as compassionate, always willing to lend a helping hand or listen to someone's troubles. She found joy in simple pleasures, music, books, and the freedom of driving lessons, which symbolized the independence she so desperately craved. Ruqia Haidari was born into a world overshadowed by conflict. Her father, a member of the persecuted Hazara minority in Afghanistan, was murdered by the Taliban when she was just a month old. Seeking safety, Ruqia's mother, Sakina Muhammad Jan, fled with her children to Australia in 2013, settling in Shepparton, Victoria. Despite their new surroundings, the rigid expectations of their Afghan Hazara community followed them. Tradition dictated that daughters were to be obedient, their marriages arranged to uphold family honor. At just 15, Ruqia was pushed into an arranged marriage. That union, however, was short-lived. By 20, she was divorced, a status that left her ostracized, branded with the stigma of being a bewa, a woman without value in marriage. But Ruqia had dreams beyond the confines of tradition. She wanted to marry for love, to live life on her own terms, and to pursue an education and career that allowed her independence. She dreamed of becoming a social worker or counselor, someone who could support other women facing oppression. She longed for a life where she could make her own choices, what to wear, where to go, whom to love. She admired strong, independent women and wished to become one herself. She imagined a future where she could travel, experience the world beyond the boundaries imposed on her, and truly be free. She was known for her resilience, her intelligence, and her warm, compassionate nature. Friends described her as a kind and determined young woman, someone who could brighten any room with her laughter. Despite the challenges she faced, Ruqia was ambitious. She wanted to study, to build a future where she could be in control of her own destiny. She dreamed of one day working in a profession that would allow her to help other women like herself. Women trapped by outdated traditions and expectations. She sought guidance from teachers, a counselor, and even the police, desperate to break free from the cultural expectations that sought to define her. She confided in those she trusted, revealing her hopes for a life filled with choices, love, and freedom. But no matter how much she fought, the forces around her refused to let her go. Her mother, however, had other plans. To restore the family's honor, Sakina Muhammad Jan sought out another suitor for Ruqia. She turned to a trusted matchmaker, a common figure in their community, to find a suitable husband who would be willing to take a divorced woman as a bride. The matchmaker eventually found Muhammad Ali Halimi, a 25-year-old man from Perth, whose family sought a wife for him. Halimi agreed to the marriage and, as per custom, a bride price was negotiated. He paid a dowry of $14,000, a significant sum meant to demonstrate his commitment and compensate Ruqia's family for their perceived loss. Though Ruqia was aware of the discussions, her objections were completely dismissed. She pleaded with her mother, arguing that she had no interest in the man and wished to wait until she could find love on her own terms. But for Jan, this marriage was not about Ruqia's happiness. It was about reclaiming her family's standing. The transaction was finalized, and Ruqia's fate was sealed against her will. Ruqia was devastated. She pleaded with her mother, insisting she did not want to marry Halimi. Her cries fell on deaf ears. She confided in her driving instructors, a teacher, and a counselor, telling them of her fears. She even approached the police, asking if she could be forced into marriage against her will. But by then, the wheels had been set in motion. In November 2019, Ruqia was wed to Halimi in an Islamic ceremony that was never officially registered. Her fate was sealed. A loveless union, the brewing storm. From the moment Ruqia arrived in Perth, she resisted her new husband. She refused intimacy, shunned his advances, and made it clear she did not love him. The tension between them was palpable. Halimi, furious at her defiance, complained to Ruqia's family. He sent videos to them, lamenting that she did not cook, did not clean, and refused to be a submissive wife. In his mind, he had paid for her. He was entitled to her obedience. But Ruqia would not yield. On January 17, 2020, a day before he took her life, Halimi made a chilling discovery. Among Ruqia's belongings, he found documents showing that she had gone to the police before the wedding seeking protection from forced marriage. That same night, he sent another video to her family, his frustration boiling over. The next day, he snapped. January 18, 2020. The argument between Ruqia and Halimi escalated beyond control. Enraged by her continued defiance, he grabbed a knife. In a fit of fury, he slashed her, leaving her to die alone in their apartment. By the time authorities arrived, it was too late. Halimi was arrested on the spot. In a police interview, he admitted to the crime without remorse. He insisted that Ruqia had disrespected him, that she had no right to refuse him. Halimi was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 19 years. But justice did not end with him. As the investigation unfolded, authorities turned their attention to the person who had orchestrated the forced marriage, Ruqia's own mother. In 2024, Sakina Mohammed Jan was charged with forced marriage, becoming the first person in Australia to be convicted under laws criminalizing the practice. During the trial, the prosecution argued that Jan had betrayed her daughter, prioritizing family honor over her child's safety. Jan, now in her late 40s, was sentenced to 3 years in prison, with a minimum term of 12 months before she could be released under strict conditions. Her conviction marked a turning point in Australia's fight against forced marriage, a crime often hidden behind closed doors. The case sent shockwaves through Australia's Hazara community. Some defended Jan, arguing that she had acted out of cultural obligation, that she was simply upholding the traditions she had known all her life. Others saw it for what it was, an archaic practice that had cost an innocent young woman her life. Outside the courtroom, emotions ran high. As Jan was taken into custody, one of her supporters collapsed in grief. Others screamed in protest, "I lost my sister, and now I lost my mum," one of Ruqia's siblings cried out. But for advocates against forced marriage, Ruqia's case became a rallying cry. It was a tragic reminder that coercion, no matter how deeply ingrained in culture, had deadly consequences. Ruqia Haidari wanted to marry for love. Instead, she was murdered by the man she was forced to wed. Her story is one of betrayal, of honor twisted into oppression, of love denied, and ultimately, of justice delayed but not denied. Her name now stands as a symbol of the countless women trapped in the shadows of forced marriages, a reminder that no tradition should ever cost a life. May her story never be forgotten. Thank you for watching. If this case resonated with you, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Your support means so much, and we're grateful to have you as part of this community. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.